A vote of non-confidence is about to be declared in the House of Commons, and we've got all the details for you right now. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Pierre Poilievre has been on a rampage when it comes to showing Justin Trudeau just how things should work in this country. I've been saying for months that you've seen Pierre in complete campaign mode with all of his spike the hikes, with his axe the tax campaigns, all of his rallies that have been sellout rallies all across the country at full capacity. There's no stopping the conservative juggernaut that is insinuating that this is going to be a majority government when we see another election. Now, while I have said on this channel multiple times, we're not going to see a spring election, I feel that that may be changing. That could be in the cards, as today, Pierre Poilievre coming out on the announcement of the Trudeau budget, saying that they are going to push forward a motion for no confidence in the Liberal government. Now, why, of course, would I feel this is going to work? Well, we know that the NDP are not going to side with the Conservatives' non-motion confidence. However, there's still the Bloc, and there are still others who can help prop this up in order to go through. And let's be honest, with 7 premiers, including some of those in NDP provinces or NDP favorable provinces, backing for Justin Trudeau's removal of the 23% increase in carbon tax that's coming on April 1st, well, it might just be the writing that's on the wall to move things forward. But don't leave it up to me. Let's take a listen to what Pierre Poilievre had to say this morning about where things are going. Now, we have a few clips here that I want to discuss, and then we're going to get into the announcement. But ladies and gentlemen, let's start off with Pierre. There's a lot to go through, so no beating around the bush. Let's just get into it.
Reality, after 8 years of Justin Trudeau and the NDP. Printing $600 billion of cash caused a massive inflationary crisis that continues to this day. A crisis that has driven food prices up faster than at any time in 40 years, that has sent 2 million people every month to a food bank, including 50 at the Gagetown base. 50 members of our armed forces can't feed themselves. 1 in 10 Torontonians are now going to a food bank. Unimaginable numbers. Last week, Montreal police had to be called in because people were literally fighting over the scraps of food that were left at one of their food banks. There's been a 600% increase in demand for the University of Western Ontario's food centre. This at a time when scurvy is making a comeback because our people cannot afford to feed themselves, with Justin Trudeau and the NDP taxing the farmers who produce the food and the truckers who ship the food, and therefore all who buy the food. And then there's housing. After 8 years of Trudeau, housing costs have doubled. The rent has doubled, mortgage payments and down payments needed to buy the average home have all doubled. This after he put in place an $89 billion program he said would make housing more affordable. He didn't build homes, he built more bureaucracy. Last year, we built fewer homes in Canada than we did in 1972, even though our population has almost doubled in that same time period. And this is not a global phenomenon. He cannot blame the rest of the world for this housing hell. This is a homegrown problem. We know that by looking at the facts. Housing costs have grown 40% faster than incomes under Trudeau.
So right away, folks, so there's an important thing to note here. The first thing he mentions is the printing of money done by Justin Trudeau and the NDP, insinuating that this is all part of Jagmeet Singh's propping up of the Liberals. So again, this is where I feel that Pierre could be looking for votes, or has maybe discussed the likelihood of votes from parties like the Bloc. Keep in mind, the Conservative government is not going to call votes of non-confidence if they feel at any point that it's just going to be a waste, or it's not going to go through, or they don't have at least a chance of it going through. Now, we've seen other calls for these kind of things. We've seen legislation calls. We've seen bills in the House be put forward, or mandates be put forward. This is the writing on the wall. Because again, as I stated when we heard about the Arrive scam vote where the House initially voted in favor for transparency from the Liberals, including the NDP at that time, where I said they're not going to be able to prop up Justin Trudeau any longer once those documents come to light. Now, again, subpoenas have still been put in place. It's going to be interesting to see later this month what happens with those. Again, I'll be following that here on the channel. But the Bloc or other parties are essentially signing their own death certificate if they continue to prop up Justin Trudeau, even with this outcry of provinces asking for a resolution to this 23% increase in tax. Premiers aren't complaining about this strictly because they agree with shutting down a carbon tax. They're doing this because it's the same as I've said. Premiers know that their job is on the line, that their career is essentially ending if they continue to increase these taxes province-wide. And much like Pierre Poilievre states here, this is a homegrown problem. It's not something that Justin Trudeau can blame on anything other than the incompetency of this government. We've seen multiple times that those high up in the government have claimed there's no studies that promote that paying a fee for your environment is going to change the way things are. Of course, he talks about his usual key points with the housing, but let's get into it a little bit more, folks, and then we're going to get to the announcement.
In the midst of all this, have they finally admitted the damage they've done? Had they stopped? Are they trying to stop and extinguish the fire they started? No. They're pouring more fuel on the inflationary flames with a April Fool's Day carbon tax of 23%. A 23% increase on your gas, your heat, and your groceries. Because if you tax the farmer who makes the food, the trucker who ships the food, you tax all who buy the food. And now we know that it was all a lie when Trudeau said you get back more in rebates. We have the numbers from the parliamentary budget officers who says, and I quote, this is $2,943 and $43 for the $2,943 for the average Alberta family. That's $900 more than they get back in rebates. Saskatchewan families, on average, $2,618. That's $525 more than they get back in rebates. $1,750 for Manitoba, $502 more than they get back in rebates. $1,674 for Ontario, that's $627 more than they get back. Nova Scotia, $1,500 more in carbon tax, $1,500 in carbon tax, $500 more than they get back. $1,600 for Prince Edward Island, $500 more than they get back. $1,874 in Newfoundland and Labrador, $377 more than they get back. I go into this painful, excruciating detail to debunk the dangerous disinformation mouthed by the Prime Minister and repeated by the media. It is dangerous. You say you think I'm exaggerating by dangerous? You know what's dangerous? Malnutrition is dangerous. And when we have a government and state-controlled media who are telling people they're getting more than they're paying when exactly the opposite is true, that means people in food banks. That means hungry stomachs in our schools. That means people suffering that shouldn't be. And we need to call out and tell the truth.
So, again, Pierre basically highlighting what the problems are by cold, hard facts in terms of actual dollars to cents, in terms of the, as he says, the misinformation. And I really hate that word, but it's what the globalist media or the prostitutes of Justin Trudeau spread around. You see that, again, when Pierre talks about wedge issues with Justin Trudeau, these are things him and Stephen Guilbeault talk about constantly of, hey, this is great for the environment. It's great. We're all doing our part. You've seen people who are completely brainwashed interviewed by prostitute-style news outlets like CBC saying, oh, we're all doing our part, ladies and gentlemen. This is just better for the environment. Somebody please tell me how it's better for the environment, for kids to be starving, for parents to be losing their homes, for families to undergo the atrocities of having to decide, do we continue to live in this country? And speaking of living in this country, migrants coming to Canada who are deciding it's too expensive to live here. It's all out of control, and it's unwinding for Justin Trudeau rapidly. But then we get to Pierre's announcement, and, well, let's just, again, get right to it, folks.
So now, today I am announcing that I'm giving Trudeau one last chance to spike his hike. One last chance and only one more day. Today I'm announcing that if Trudeau does not declare today an end to his forthcoming tax increases on food, gas, and heat, that we will introduce a motion of non-confidence in the Prime Minister. It will read that the House declare non-confidence in the Prime Minister and his costly government for increasing the carbon tax by 23% on April 1st as part of his plan to quadruple the tax while Canadians cannot afford to eat, heat, and house themselves, and call for the House to be dissolved so Canadians can vote in a carbon tax election.
There you have it, folks. I mean, Pierre taking no prisoners as he knows when the time to strike is. I've often said, I questioned when Aaron O'Toole ran for leadership over Andrew Scheer, why Pierre Poilievre simply didn't run at that time. He's obviously a smart, educated man. He is somebody who looks at this in terms of strategy, and he knew while having another child, while trying to raise his family, that it wasn't the right time for him to commit to politics, but he knew that he had it within him to change the system, to change what we're looking at for the future in Canadian politics, and now we're seeing him strike. He's coming forward, and honestly, ladies and gentlemen, this is more than filibuster. I don't think this is a nothing burger. I feel that even if it fails, there's a purpose behind it. It does nothing more than strengthen the numbers of the Conservative Party. So while a lot of people say it'll do nothing, that in fact is a falsehood, because any province, any MP, any party that stands against a motion to say that Canadians should not be taxed to death in order to buy their basic necessities is essentially dooming themselves. They're doing nothing more than propping up more Conservative seats, and the likelihood of a very obvious Conservative majority government. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think other parties are going to join with this? Do you think there might be some NDP who defy Jagmeet Singh or cross the floor and try to jump in on this vote? Do you think that the Bloc is going to side with Pierre Poilievre on this one? It's a tough call, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're hitting that bar, you're also clicking your bell for notifications. Join us live here on the channel every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe as we go over everything that's happened this week, everything coming up in the week ahead, and a little bit of back and forth with the community. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.